I do.
Yes.
When it comes to death, is there any problem with euthanizing someone?
Can you repeat that, please?
Is when it comes to death, is there any problem in euthanizing someone?
In euthanizing someone?
Correct.
Well, I don't see what the problem would be. You can cremate people, euthanize, I mean, the soul has left the body, and the body, you put it in the earth, it's just gonna deteriorate anyway. So I don't see a problem with that. I have no judgments on how people are buried, what happens to them after they die. All I
I mean,
do,
taking someone's life, though.
huh?
I mean, taking someone's life. They're dying, but then you end it as
I have no
opposed.
problems with that either. I mean, when people are on machines and they can barely breathe, and I mean, I have no problems with that. I mean, look, I have no judgments about these things. It's all karma, and people have to learn how to surrender all these judgments and ideas about the way life and death are supposed to be. So, euthanizing, I don't know. I have no judgments about that. In fact, I don't have many judgments about anything. I mean, I finally have learned in my life to just let the world be. And why should somebody go through, years of suffering and it's going to go nowhere? You understand? I mean, in a way, I once euthanized somebody. I mean, I'll never forget sitting with a student of mine who had AIDS. And he had very serious problems. He had this thing called Kaposi sarcoma, and he had scales all over his body. And he'd been struggling with that for months and months. And I remember going to the hospital and seeing him. And I was sitting and I said to him, look, let go. You're going to come back to this world as a beautiful baby. You're going to bring everything you learned about, spiritual practice into your next lifetime. You're going to do wondrous good in your lifetime, bringing that all with you. Why do you have to continue to suffer like this? Just let go. And he looked at me and he smiled and he just shook his head and said, yes. Next day he left. So I don't, life and death are one. There is no death for the human soul. It just continues to evolve and change and learn and grow. And I have no judgments about these things, about how people should be buried, whether they should be, cremated, euthanized. I mean, I know there's lots of drama about this stuff in the newspapers, but I kind of stay away from it. I'm not interested. There reaches a point in your growth where life and death become one. And this is an incredible point in a human being's growth, where that kind of thing happens, where all of polarity, it just vanishes in a state of nothingness. And what we receive when all polarity vanishes, we receive wisdom. We get real wisdom. We get real knowledge that stems from really literally the fountainhead of creation. And that's the kind of knowledge that we're all seeking, understanding and knowledge of, genesis, of creativity, of, that which is beyond human understanding. And if we attain this kind of state of nothingness, it flows through us. I mean, all the greatest music, the greatest art, the greatest dance, it's all been created from that state of nothingness. And usually when music falls short of greatness, it's because the person who composed it got involved. They didn't let it flow. They didn't just develop the craft and let it flow through them. and create something extraordinary. And our lives are no different. We interfere with the creative process. Our minds never shut up. We know better. All that polarity and conflict that goes on inside us. Once we can master that, then creativity flows. And it'll manifest differently in the life of every single human being. And all meditation is developing the craft so that creativity can flow. So there's no longer life and death. There's no longer polarity. There's no longer conflict. There's just an enormous dialectic of everything merging into nothingness. And out of that nothingness comes all of wisdom, all of knowledge, all of love, everything, of God flows through us. Now, this is not easy to do. And as I've said a billion times already, the only reason it's not easy to do, we're up against the one person who keeps it from happening, and that's ourselves. And once we get over ourselves, once we get free of ourselves, all this takes place. And this craft that I teach, this meditation, was literally devised to teach people how to do this. And it'll manifest in so many areas of one's life when a person begins to learn how to do this. Does anyone else have a question? Great question.
Yes, Stuart,
Yes,
I would like to ask a question.
Yes.
Did we meditate as long as we usually do?
Oh, I have no idea. I have no idea.
I was surprised because it seemed like so short, or I have missed a part or something.
I have no idea. Sometimes they're longer, sometimes they're shorter. I don't know. I just do it until there's something in me that says, okay, it's time to stop the class.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if it's longer or shorter. All I know is it was very deep.
Yes. To me, it seemed like it was just 10 minutes or so.
It was probably, 40 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
When you really go into yourself, time is irrelevant. Time is irrelevant in the universe. Like 100 years is like the blinking of an eye when you talk about cosmic time. Time becomes irrelevant. What seems like a lifetime could be seconds. What seems like seconds could be a lifetime. I think that's great because then we're living in the moment. And when you live in the moment, seconds feel like lifetimes. Lifetimes feel like seconds. I mean it, when you're completely alive and living in the moment. So I don't know, Luke, how long it was, whether it was longer or shorter. Does anyone else have a question like to ask?
Yes, Stuart, I have a very down-to-earth question. What can we best do when during meditation speaker view changes to a participant?
Excuse me?
What can we best do when during meditation speaker view goes to a participant?
Oh, I don't know. Look, that's some Zoom technological stuff, but I don't know why that happens. It doesn't happen. Well, I have all of you in front of me. And I run the class by going from person to person. I don't know. Check with Zoom and see why that happens. I don't know. I don't have an answer.
Actually, I can answer. Joe, what you can do is you can go back to gallery and then click on Stuart and then pin Stuart. When he's pinned, it happens because somebody was not muted and the sound makes him come up. So just go to the gallery, pin Stuart, and then it doesn't matter if there's a sound.
That's why I also say at the beginning of the class, click on my picture, click on speaker view. I don't even know why I say it. You just explained to me why I say it. I was just told to say this when I first started doing these classes. But I had no idea why I was saying that. But that's not for you, Joe. That's for everybody. If that ever happens, just follow that, Isa's instructions.
Thank you, Isa.
Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask?
Stuart, this is Emma. Could you speak about flowers?
About who?
Could you speak about flowers?
Flowering.
Mm-hmm. Flowers, the springtime and growth.
Well, look, I mean, if you open your heart, if you quiet your mind, if you're centered inside, your whole system will flower. It'll open because you are receiving then higher energy. The energy of God, spirit, whatever you want to call it, begins to live inside you. And that will enable your whole system to just go through a rebirth. It'll flower. It'll, change. Look, I've seen people come to this meditation that, physically were not very beautiful. And after a few months of doing it, they became beautiful people. Because real beauty is not a physical thing. It exists inside the heart of a human being. When somebody opens their heart, their whole physical presence transforms itself. It flowers. They become beautiful. It's just something that Vogue magazine needs to learn, that real beauty is in the human heart. Real beauty is in love. Real beauty is getting free of oneself, not being, a prisoner of all those encumbrances and tensions that exist inside. And then we become, it's like, I'll never forget when I used to do these retreats. And at the end of the retreat, I'd look at people and people just had twinkles in their eye. They were beautiful. Everybody had this twinkle. You could see God coming through them. That to me is flowering. That to me is opening. And you see it physically. It's just not some metaphysical concept. It literally happens to the physical appearance of a human being. And I've seen it so many times. And suddenly I barely even recognize the person. They come and they're beautiful. And what it is that's beautiful, it's that twinkle, that, their hearts open, the love that's flowing through them, the flowering, both physically, spiritually, on every level. And I think that's important, because when we're tense, our whole physical being shows that tension. People become beautiful. It's just an extraordinary thing that happens. I mean, I used to have students years ago, I still maybe do, who, you know, all they wanted was to get married, to have a husband or a wife. And you know, they would study with me for 6 months and they would transform people. Their whole physical appearance was different. And all these men used to fall in love with them. You know, and you know, they would wind up having relationships, getting married, getting, you know, having children. I mean, it was incredible. And up until a certain point, they, you know, nobody loves me. It's only because you didn't love yourself. Once that love takes place, the heart opens. I mean, people are attracted immediately to that type of flowering. The terrible thing about it is they, you know, they would wind up in relationships, and the men used to be jealous of me because the women used to come to my classes all the time. And they always reached this place where there was a choice between continuing meditation or staying in the relationship. And I always thought that was absolutely stupid, but it happened all the time. And most people would choose staying in the relationship rather than continuing with the meditation. And I always used to get a kick out of it because these guys used to get jealous of me because the women would come and, you know, and I mean, what, you know, 8 months ago, you wouldn't have looked at them, and look what's happened. They become beautiful. You fell in love. And now you're jealous of this meditation, which made it possible for that to happen. It was very funny.
Thank you, Stuart. It sounds like they didn't understand it was this and that, rather this or that.
It's exactly the truth, Emma. It's not this or that. It's, you know, a relationship and spiritual life. Everything works together. And when you start living this or either or, life gets very tense. Does anyone else have a question? Okay, if there are no more questions, then there will be meditation on Sunday. Tomorrow, one of my, I think Tantra 14 is going to be published on my website. I hope you all go there and read it. I'm having a great deal of fun doing those things and writing those things. You know, I have 22 of them now, so it's going to I seem to be writing one a day now. But anyway, God bless you all. Thank you for being here, for being part of this. And I'm looking forward to seeing everyone on Sunday.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you very much, Stuart.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart.